I hope you are ready for the fastest and simplest free course on YouTube about how to get more views on every single piece of content that you create from here on out. I would not upload a single video until you've gone through this and applied these exact things to every piece of content you put onto the internet. And here's why. I started doing this and I accumulated more views on the videos that I applied this to than all of my other videos in the last like 2 or 3 years. The craziest part is it's so simple. Let's go straight into it with these 2 different intros. Both intros are about the same thing, making a good old boring cup of coffee. But try and notice what the biggest differences are about these 2. Let's start off with the one I unfortunately see so many creators doing that's so easily avoidable. Roll. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a cup of coffee. I know how to make a really nice cup of coffee, and I'm going to show you how I actually do it, and you can also make really nice coffee. So let's get into the video, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do this, all the different steps, and how I like to make the best coffee. Let's get into it. Now let's take a look at the second one that will 100% significantly increase your watch time, which means more views because YouTube's going to recommend that to more people, which means more subscribers, which means growing your channel a hell of a lot faster. Let's roll that one. If you've ever tried to make a cup of coffee at home, you've probably realized it doesn't taste anywhere near as good as when you get it from your local barista, and definitely not as good as when you get it from one of the best coffee shops in the world. But why is that? Well, after I spent some time with a barista in Italy, learning exactly what goes into making a perfect cup of coffee, the solutions were actually quite simple. And once I learned them, all of my friends were begging me to find out exactly how I was crafting such absolutely delicious coffees. Hopefully you will agree that the second one is significantly more attention grabbing, and there's a couple of simple techniques that you can use in every single one of your videos to achieve the same thing. If your video looks like the first one, don't worry, we're going to go through these steps and you can apply them to your videos the same way I have, which has resulted in significantly more views and growth. So since I opened up my editing agency for people that want to get their videos edited by my specialized YouTube editing team, I've been getting a lot of video submissions from creators that all share a lot of the same kind of easy fixes and errors that they do consistently through their videos. Now, the problem is these fixes are really easy, but if you don't know what you need to be changing or fixing, it's very hard to figure out, and it will take years of trial and error, if ever, for you to figure them out. And although we do share some tips on how the creators within the editing agency can improve their content, I wanted to make one here that I can just share for all of you guys because you will definitely benefit from it as well. So let's get straight into it so you can make sure your videos don't look like the first one, look like the second one, so we can all get more views, more watch time, more subscribers. It just is that way. By the way, once you have watched this video and learned all of the tips and techniques that we're going to be sharing, I would highly recommend coming back to the beginning of the video and re-watching the intro and how I've actually applied these tips in a real world scenario. You might think that you've noticed a lot of them, but I guarantee there's actually a whole bunch that you didn't notice because they're very subtle. And after you've learned them through the rest of the video, when you come back, they'll be so obvious and you'll see them in all successful YouTube channels videos, and you will undoubtedly apply them to all of your own content as well. So let's get straight into the first thing that is going to make the biggest difference. The most important thing, hands down, is how you script using the 3 Ps. This is going to make the biggest change. But before we discuss that, and for that to make sense, let's talk about how you actually flow into that. We need to understand what our video is actually about, but like what it's really about. Your video needs a very clear topic. That's why we think of the thumbnail and title first. And once you have your overall topic idea, then we can go, how do we want to set this up or intro it? What is the whole middle or the big value aspect of our video? And then what is the outro and how do we want to kind of end that video? Now, if you have your idea or your clear path or flow of what your video is, if you can't explain it to me what that entire video is about in one sentence, you don't have a clear enough path. Go back, and just think about it a little bit more. Once you've figured that flow and point out, the work isn't done, because just because you figured it out, it doesn't necessarily mean that your video is going to come across that way. So script out your video however you want, whether it's word for word or bullet points or just going off script, whatever. Make sure that there's no extra things written into that script, and every single point or topic that you're covering within that script should drive home that main clear flow that your video is actually about. Everything in there should be focusing on that sentence that you explained to me what your video is about, which essentially is going to be your title, thumbnail, topic kind of content. Okay, we're getting to those 3 P's, but one more thing before we get to that absolutely vital step, because if you don't nail this, no one's actually going to stick around to even find out what the rest of your video is about, meaning that it could be of anything. It's about front loading your videos. Look, 80% of your effort should go into the first 20% of your video. If you don't grab people's attention right here, you're done. It doesn't matter what you do in the rest of your video, because no one's going to stick around to see it, and it might as well be black. So how do we do that? Things like your scripting for the first intro and opener to your video needs to take all of your effort. Graphics, overlays, B-roll, your angle, focusing on the inflection in your voice, how you open that video. This is everything. Front load your video as much as you possibly can, because if you don't get those people in the initial 30 seconds of that video, you're done. People are clicking off to the next thing. Nothing else matters. And that's not to say that the rest of the video doesn't need to contain some really nice value and put all of your effort into it. It's just that you only have so much effort to give. And if you're going to spend it in the wisest place possible, it's going to be in that first little bit of your video. If you're thinking that this feels like a lot and it's difficult to manage all of these tasks, it can be. But here's a little way that you can make it a lot easier for yourself. If you've ever tried to create content and you are trying to front load your videos by creating screen records and then having some nice captions and graphics, and then you're jumping over into something else and you're editing, it can become quite time consuming and pretty annoying to jump between all these different platforms. The sponsor of today's video, Descript, allows you to do everything all within one platform, and it's easier than ever, like AI voice cloning. So if you did make a mistake and you didn't have a good part, you can literally train the AI to mimic your voice and then type it in and get text to voice generation. Once I upload a video into Descript, one of my favorite features is not only this text-based editing, where I can literally edit my video right here in the text part, but going to this underload feature means I can use AI to do all of the menial tasks that just take up a bunch of time, so I can rather focus on the things that matter. To remove filler words that will take out all your ums and ahs, but even more than that is to edit for clarity, which will take out like all the obvious double things and just kind of refine your video to make sure that it's more on point and like not wandering off. I can just hit edit for clarity, and then you can see in the edit here where it's taken out everything that it thinks is not as important as it should be. This saves a huge amount of time, and because I'm the pilot here, if I want to change anything or take anything back, I can still fully control what I want to do and ensure that the video turns out the way I want it. You can try Descript and its crazy features right now for free by using the link in my description. If you want to simplify and speed up your entire workflow so that you can get more videos out in a fast and streamlined way, check out Descript. It's free to try. Okay, let's go over our 3 Ps, because this is part of the front loading concept, and any video that you create that has these will just make people like unable to click off of your video. The first P, there's actually a 4th bonus P, but we're going to go over these ones and then that will make sense later. But the first P is going to be pain point. When opening a video, and you'll notice this in the intro to this video, is that you want to open with something that your ideal viewer is going to resonate with, something that they're struggling with, a pain point, something that you think they won't be handling that well. So in our little example, we spoke about making bad coffee. this is something that people can resonate with. If you're at home and you try to make coffees, they just aren't as good as when you get them from your local coffee shop. So that's our pain point. If it was something like, if I'm showing someone how to film, I could say, if you've ever filmed and then gone back home and realized that your footage actually just looks like garbage, now I've resonated with them and identified this pain point. By identifying the pain point right in the beginning, it makes the viewer feel like you are seeing exactly what their problem is, and the next P in the method is pathway. So we now, once we've identified that pain point, we want to show them that we have a clear pathway of how we can solve this problem. So every time you make coffee at home, it tastes terrible or not nearly as good as the real coffee. I have a solution to making the perfect cup of coffee, and this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to tell you in this video. And then the third P, before we get to the bonus P, which is one of the most important, is going to be proof. Because now that we've said or promised that we have some solution or pathway to what their end result actually is that they want, now we want to present some proof. This can be in so many different forms. For our coffee example, my proof was that I learned from a barista in Italy. This is giving me credibility and showing that I have actually learned from a credible source, and I must be really good if you learn from a barista in Italy. And the other form of proof that I presented was, once I knew how to make this cup of coffee, all of my friends just kept begging me for the technique that I used to make this coffee. Both of those are just forms of proof, further hammering down any doubt that the person that's watching this video might have, going like, well, the coffee probably isn't that good, like it's probably not as good as if I get it from my barista. Well, we've just given you some proof as to why it actually is, because all of my friends want the coffee. So that's our proof. If you don't have your own credibility, a great way to do this is to lean into other people's credibility. So maybe if I was making a video about how to go viral, but I don't have any viral videos, I could do something like, these are the exact techniques that the huge YouTubers use, like Casey Neistat, and it's why he got views. Then that's your proof. You've kind of lent on someone else for their credibility to give your concept a little bit of proof. So it doesn't have to mean that you've achieved this thing. Once we've nailed our 3 Ps and had our setup like that, it's time to actually start delivering on the promise of our thumbnail and title. This is where we really want to give the viewer all of the value that we kind of persuaded them that they were going to get by convincing them to click on this thumbnail and title, and then having that initial kind of set up for our video. So it's super important that your video and the value within your video goes above and beyond what the viewer actually thinks that they're gonna get. Because if you have an amazing intro and then the rest of the video kind of falls a bit flat, yes, you might hook people in the initial part, in that front loading section, but they're gonna quickly kind of taper off and just end up leaving the video anyway. So now we want to back up with what we've said. We want to over deliver on the content, and it can be something as simple as having bonus tips. If you said, here's 5 ways to improve your coffee, in the beginning you can be like, well, there's actually 6. I'm going to show you all these extra things, and then the tips of how to make that coffee need to be unique, and they need to be things that you've actually like learned yourself, or that you feel the viewer will genuinely implement into the way that they make coffee, and it will change the way they do things. It can't just be like, well, something lame that doesn't really have any effect. That's not going to work. The tips in this video that I'm sharing with you right now took me an incredibly long time to learn. It's actually an accumulation of things that I've learned to implement into my own videos over the last like 5 years. So it's not some stuff that I just kind of Googled or some bullshit that I just made up. It's real things, and I have the aim of these videos to have people that have watched it to be able to implement this into their own videos from here on out, and maybe impact and change the way that they've previously been creating content for the better. So I spent a lot of time coming up with these tips, and I would highly recommend that you do the same. I have a bonus tip that I want to share at the end of this video that so many creators do that actually literally ruins your video's potential for any views, and I'm going to share that right after I share that other P that we saved till last. And there's a reason that we saved that P, the bonus P, till last, and that's because it stands for payoff. Now, if you have initial setups and hooks that you promise payoffs coming later, that's great. And I assume that you've probably heard about this before. But here's the thing where creators kind of lack and don't do it as much as they could. And that's that you want micro hooks, setups, and payoffs throughout your videos. People's attention spans are very, very short. And if you have one big initial hook in the beginning and you promise a payoff later at the end of your video, once people have gone through that video a little bit, they kind of just forget about it, they're over it. Their attention span is so short that they can't be bothered to wait until the end of the video for that payoff. So what you want to do is continuously create open feedback loops throughout your video where the person wants that little payoff. And then you continuously reward them by giving them those payoffs sporadically sprinkled through your video. This creates a feeling in the viewer where they have this open feedback loop, which they naturally want to close by getting the payoff, and then you do it, and they get a little dopamine hit, and they go, oh, that was satisfying, I got that payoff. Oh, you've just set up another hook, and now I'm gonna wait for the next one, and that continuously happens through the video. Go back and watch this video like I mentioned, and you'll notice that the whole video, there's continuously little setups, and then payoffs, and then another setup, and then another payoff, and it just encourages the viewer to always have that next thing that they want to find out or hear about, and then they get it, and it's rewarding because it's good information, and then they go, oh, okay, well, I better stick around till the next one because that one's also probably going to be good and rewarding, and I want that. Then I can also have the big payoff or hook at the end, like the P that we saved for last because that is the payoff, and then I have also just set up other little bonus little payoffs, like the bonus tip that I just said that I would share with you. And the bonus tip for this video is going to be that at the end of your video, instead of having this long-winded, drawn-out outro that inevitably just means people click off, because as soon as they see that they've gotten all of the value out of that video and you start doing this like outro, they're just like, whatever, click off. And what happens with that is that the end of your video's audience retention just dips straight off. And if that end retention drops off, it affects the whole rest of your video's average view duration or average retention because it just clips off that tail. So instead of allowing that to happen, once you've got all of your value through your video, you've said everything that you need to say, and you've said any calls to action, like the fact that you should go and check out Descript if you want to simplify your entire editing process, then you just end the video. It's that simple. Have fun. Bye.